Welcome to another GTN Coaches Corner, where we are your personal coaches and we answer all your questions. You can leave them with the hashtag GTN Coaches Corner below this video or any video, and we'll answer your questions in an upcoming video. So let's start this week with some of your questions, starting with this one from Jabansky, one of our favorite commenters. They say, GTN Coaches Corner, I'm sitting here watching the video with a massive headache and a runny nose. What are some practices, aside from COVID precautions, of course, that you or athletes you know take to avoid getting sick? I'm also curious to know if you've come across any superstitions. I don't think I know of any superstitions.
No, and it does feel like it does feel like a lot of people are getting sick lately, non-COVID related. I think perhaps just due to a year or so of just not socialising, so just picking them up. I know. Now, a good rule of thumb here is the neck rule. Now, above the neck, i.e. sneezing, sinus pressure, stuffy nose, then breaking a sweat is generally deemed okay. Now, that comes with a caveat, obviously. Don't go pushing it too hard. You want to make sure that you're keeping or knocking back any intensity and keeping the training pretty light. In fact, actually, breaking a sweat and getting out and exercising can actually just be good to sort of relieve some of that sinus pressure if you are experiencing that. The one thing I would say, or I tend to advise avoiding, is swimming, just because a swimming pool, or at least an indoor swimming pool, can be a bit of a breeding ground for germs. Not nice for you and not nice for other people if you are taking a cold or germs along there. And sort of the first port of call I tend to say is just jump on the indoor bike in your home, nice and warm, you don't need to move much, and you can kind of jump on, and just play it by ear, see how you're feeling.
Much or as little as you like. And then, if it is below your neck, if you have any symptoms below your neck, that is fever, body aches, stuffed up chest or congested chest, any kind of body aches, anything like that, don't train. Don't train at all. It's just not worth it. There's all kinds of complications that can come, and even if you don't have any of those complications, you're probably just going to prolong your illness, and it's going to take you that much longer to get better. In that case, we'd say rest. Rest is your best friend. You're going to recover quicker and get back to training quicker. Ironically, you will lose less time and less fitness if you just stop completely, give your body all the energy reserves you can to help it fight that virus, whatever it's fighting. Don't go out training if you have symptoms below the neck.
Yeah, I have to give the analogy, there's no point limping along for a couple of weeks when you could have nipped it in the bud within a couple of days and be back training. You wouldn't gain much from a couple of weeks of average training whilst you're trying to nurse an illness or an injury. So just get it.
Exactly. And one final thing, as you are getting better, when you feel like I'm ready to go, if you've taken a few days off and you think, right, I'm better, I'm ready to go, give it one more day. Yeah, just to be safe and not get a recurrence.
Well, also, quite often when you're recovering from an illness, when you start to feel better, you think, oh, I'm back to normal. And actually in a couple of days' time, you're like, oh no, actually, I'm back to normal now. I just felt a lot better than I was.
It's all relative.
Next question from Stephen Robertson. What is a good resting heart rate? Nice and simple, and a great question.
Yeah, Stephen's back. Resting heart rate is a measure of your average heart rate when your body is at complete rest, as in when you're not doing anything. Generally, it's taken when you first wake up in the morning, while you are still lying down without any movement, before any stresses have raised your heart rate. And it's a pretty good measure of your fitness, although only relative to yourself. It's not really a measure of your fitness compared to the guy who's your training mate or anyone else or the person lying next to you. It doesn't really make any difference what their resting heart rate compared to yours is. A low resting heart rate doesn't mean you're a better athlete. But your resting heart rate will get lower as you get fitter.
It's a tricky one because, yes, a lower heart rate on the most part means that you're fitter, but as you're saying, it's not definitive.
No, I have a pretty low resting heart rate.
What's yours?
I'm not sure what it is now. It's probably higher than it used to be because I'm significantly less fit than I used to be.
What was it when you were racing?
37, 38.
Yeah, I was similar actually. So there we go.
Yeah, so maybe we were.
Well, interesting actually, because the American Heart Association actually states that a normal resting heart rate for ordinary folk out there is between 60 and 100 beats. But for athletes and sort of active people, that number can actually dip as close to 40. It's also worth noting that actually for women tends to be higher, and as you get older, your resting heart rate will start to increase.
I used to have a band on my wrist when I went into hospital for surgery because
because people
they were going to shock me because I was going too low because of exercise-induced bradycardia, it's called, where your stroke volume gets really big and your resting heart rate gets really low. So obviously if they put you under, it's going to get super low. But that's probably not something you need to worry about. What you should probably be doing though is monitoring your resting heart rate. It can tell you some pretty important factors. If you're monitoring it daily or at least every few days, you can see a spike in your resting heart rate. And often this precedes what we were talking about in the previous question, an illness. A day or 2 or 3 days before you get that illness, your body is already fighting the infection and you'll see your resting heart rate go up by 3, 4, 10 beats even. And if you wake up in the morning and your resting heart rate is significantly higher than normal, that's a pretty good sign that you need to take it easy that day. Maybe not complete rest, but definitely take it easy. It's one of the first markers that your body is under some kind of stress and you need to take it a bit easier. So it is worth monitoring if you have the time to do it. I was always so bad at it.
Me too.
I think I'll definitely do it. I'll start doing it. And you wake up and by the time you remember, it's an hour is gone.
You've already had a coffee.
Exactly. You had a coffee there.
But honestly, it is very, very good. Great question though. Next one from Benjamin Donot, sorry. Hello, I've registered to my first triathlon this year. It's Olympic distance. I come from a swimming background. I can swim 1,500 meters in under 25 minutes. My problem is that I'm not used to swimming in the open water. And most importantly, I'm quite anxious about a mass start and all the punches that might come from it. My only goal for the first triathlon is to enjoy it as much as I can. Should I start with the slower swimmers to avoid the intensity of the race start, or would I be better off diving in with the best swimmers and taking the risk? Thanks for your answers, amazing channel. Well, yeah, Ben, I can definitely relate to this because I actually came from a swimming background and yeah, like yourself, quite a strong swimmer, and theoretically I should have been jumping straight in there and mixing up with some of the best swimmers in there. And I really wasn't initially because it is very different. And I often say open water swimming is like a totally different sport to pool swimming. But you do have the fundamentals there, it just takes a bit of training. So actually, before we get on to where you should start in the race, I thought I'd list out, and I've written these down for you. So first off, and this is useful for anyone as well, like just trying to improve your open water swimming. First off, just getting in the open water. So that's not rocket science, just more experience in the open water and just getting used to the fact that the water moves around beneath you and all this like slight adjustments you need to make to your stroke as that water's moving, the chop, etc. Swimming in closer proximity to other swimmers. You can actually do this in the swimming pool, pushing off close to one another. And if you're really lucky, actually swimming alongside one another in the swimming pool. Practicing some mass starts in the open water. So literally starting with other people, close together and knocking each other with your arm just so you get used to that. And then also drafting, learning to draft off one another. Again, you can do that in the pool, off one another's feet, also off the hips.
Yeah, if you do all those things that Mark has said, you will almost certainly be more comfortable and happier in the open water, and where you start will not really be an issue. So your question will be answered. But if that is still a question for you, we would say you need to seed yourself as close to your swim ability as possible. So you don't want to start right in the front if you're going to be slightly slower than those front swimmers, because they will bash you and come over you, the top of you, and they will knock you all over the place. You also, though, don't want to start right at the back with the really slow swimmers, because that's where it's going to be safest and you're going to be most comfortable, because then you're going to be swimming into people. You're going to have these people stopping in front of you doing breaststroke while you are comfortably swimming your freestyle, and you will swim straight into them, which is just as frustrating and off-putting and uncomfortable for you and them. So you want to seed yourself very much where your swim prowess is. So if you know the leaders are going to do 20 minutes and you're capable of doing 25, seed yourself just a little bit back from the leaders. If you're only going to swim 35 or 45, then you need to be all the way near the back. It very much depends on where you think you can come out, and seed yourself accordingly. Don't start right at the back if you're a decent swimmer, which it sounds like you are, even if you're nervous. After the first 100 meters or so, it really spreads out. You'll have a bit more space to swim. You'll be a bit more comfortable. You will occasionally still bump into people or come across a slower swimmer or a faster swimmer swimming past you. But for the most part, you'll have your own space to swim, and you want to be swimming around people who are swimming roughly the same speed as you. You don't want to find your own space and just have hundreds of people around you who are swimming significantly slower than you. That's not where you want to be. So yeah, seed yourself according to your own ability.
And on that, really important thing to kind of just take into account when you're swimming. Yes, you do bash into one another when you're swimming open water, but on the most part, people don't mean to do that. And actually, those people that may knock you with their arms are probably freaking out as much as you are and trying to swim away. It's all pretty much accidental.
You call them punches, but they aren't actually punches, even though some of them might feel like it as they bring that recovery on.
I found that a really good thing to keep in my mind, and often with athletes I've told, it's actually helped them because they have stood on that start line thinking, everyone's out to get me. And actually they're not at all.
They think you're out to get them.
Yeah.
Our next question is from Bethany Blount, and she says, #GTN Coaches Corner. How do you store your wetsuit? I bought my first one in the fall, but I haven't figured out how to store it where it's out of the way, can dry, and my cat's claws can't gain access to it. Well, another swim-related one, and quite relevant as we come to summer and people are getting the wetsuits out more and more. Storing a wetsuit, the best way is on a very fat coat hanger and hanging up. That is ideal. Obviously, if your cat is going to start playing with it and tearing the legs, you maybe want to put it somewhere where the cat can't get at it, but that is definitely the best. Potentially inside out if you need it to dry a bit quicker. So inside out, hanging on a fat coat hanger. You don't want a thin coat hanger because what that'll do is create a seam all the way down the shoulders, and that is ideal. If you do have to lie it down or put it somewhere out of the way, then either rolling it is good so you don't get massive creases, although that can give a crease down the side, but rolling it or gently folding it like it was in that original box. What they do when they ship it to you is they fold it in 3 generally, or maybe 4, and they put these kind of a cardboard tube, maybe that you get out of your tin foil or something, and you put it on the folds. That way you don't get a sharp crease anywhere in it. So if you're storing it for a long period, like putting it away for the whole winter, then yeah, fold it into a box and put like a cardboard tube or some kind of pipe in between those seams, and the rest of the time for the season, hang it up on a nice fat coat hanger.
It sort of depends a little bit on the climate as well. Now in the summer I can get away with hanging it up outside for a little bit and it will dry out mostly, and then I might bring it back inside because let's face it, in the UK, even with the glorious sunshine during the day, it's not going to dry a suit in a day. It doesn't get that warm here. And then I'll let it do the last bit inside. If it's super hot, and I have made this mistake before in South Africa actually, don't leave it out in the sun because your wetsuit will melt.
Yeah, don't leave your wetsuit hanging outside where someone else can get it in South Africa either, because it might grow eggs.
Yeah. Right, next question, final question from Greg Fields. I'm training for my first triathlon and turning to GTN content for info and motivation.
Good man. Come to the right place.
As I look for a new bike for my first few races until I earn a proper bike, am I better off with an entry-level new bike, i.e. from Decathlon, with entry-level group set, or an older retro Peugeot or Miele bike restored with the latest group set and tyres? This is a really good question. We've had this question through countless times. Obviously, as with everything, it depends a little bit and depends on how retro we're going here.
Yeah, we actually did we did this exact experiment when we did our cheapest triathlon possible. So if you search for that video after you finished watching this, Mark bought a Euro bike from Decathlon. Brand new, yeah. Brand spanking. And I bought a 10, 11-year-old Scott for a third of the price.
Yeah.
And mine was significantly better than his. So there's your answer right there. But yeah, it really depends on what you buy. And if you are buying a Peugeot from 1970, you may find you can't do anything with the components. You can't find replacement components or upgrade it in any way, and it might actually just not work for you. And then you would be better off with a newer bike with the right size group sets and all that kind of thing. But you probably are better off looking at something from 10 to 15 years ago on eBay, where you can get a second-hand deal and then you can upgrade a few of the things like the wheels and the tires, and you've got a great bike that you can use for your whole first few years of triathlon. That would be my first port of call. Obviously, with the second-hand market, there's always some risk, and you probably want to get someone who knows a little bit about bikes to help you with that purchase of a second-hand
Definitely,
bike.
that was going to be my suggestion. Also, if you do decide to go down the newer bike route, I'd probably suggest going down a reputable brand, not like I did with the Euro bike off Amazon, because actually what you do is you get sort of a drip feed of some of the top-end technology from their higher-end bikes down to the entry-level bikes.
I think it's called a trickle-down.
That was the one I was looking for. Drip feed, trickle down.
Almost the same.
And actually, Decathlon, as your example, is a pretty good example. Their bikes are pretty solid, actually, for the money you can spend on them, and I think you'd be pretty happy.
Yeah, you don't seem too certain about what you're doing with the bikes, and I would definitely find someone who knows something about bikes to help you find a great second-hand deal, or at least buy the right new bike.
Yeah, well, thanks ever so much for all your questions. Great questions, as always. Please do keep them coming in using the hashtag GTN Coaches Corner. If you've enjoyed today's video, give it a thumbs up, give it a like, and see you next time.